Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Nurse Mark and the Green Nurse Daily Dose of AFA.
Where we bring you hope and inspiration for growth and healing so you can start your day off the AFA way. And in case you have forgotten what that is, Mark, we got to remind them.
Oh my gosh, it's so easy. You're absolutely fucking amazing exactly as you are. And don't let anybody tell you any different.
Yep, it is. Doing the best you can with what you have right here, right now, makes you absolutely fucking amazing.
Yes. Yes.
So here we
Welcome.
are.
February 3rd, 2021. Woo! Good morning, Denise.
Hi, Denise.
So here we are. Another Wednesday, first one in February. It's the only day we get. All right, let's start off with a little bit of daily love, Sherry. So today I pulled from Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh, book one. It's one of my favorite books. It had a huge impact when it came out and I read it. And it's one of those books that you read and reread. And
You
I
take
shared
it.
it with my father-in-law, right? Yeah, I shared it with my father-in-law at the time. And he reread that book probably a dozen times over the course of the last, 25 years or whatever. He just soaked it up. And I've done the same thing. It's one of those books you reread and highlight and something new's revealed. And you're like, oh my gosh, okay, why didn't I see that the first time?
Yes,
Anyway, please. Yeah. You know how it is.
I have that same book too. So there's like a group of books that I have that I've been reading for a very, very long time. And it's just great because you can pull it out, you can flip it open, and you can see something that you've highlighted. So it's a great tool. It's a great tool. It's almost like, this is how I look at it, and I'll let you read. You get one of those books that you have that's had a huge impact and it's highlighted, and you go, what do I need to know today? What do I need to know today? Oh, and there it is. Exactly. All right, we'll get back.
And so today's passage talks about, being dedicated to a spiritual life and, what it's really all about. And it's talking about letting others just be themselves because, it says right here, it says, your job is to render them independent, to teach them as quickly and completely as possible how to get along without you. For you are no blessing to them so long as as long as they need you to survive. But bless them truly only in the moment they realize you are unnecessary. And in the same sense, God's greatest moment is the moment you realize you need no God.
Ooh, there we go. We have the spark inside of us. Whatever you want to say your God is, whether it be universal divine source, the divine matrix, Buddha, Jesus, Mary, like whatever your higher power is, it's a wonderful tool to just tap into your own inner wisdom. That's why we have Wise Wisdom for Wellness Wednesdays.
That's it. Wellness Wednesday. And you know what, Sherry? It made me think of my own kids and how, I worry about them and I'd like them to do things my way. But at the end of the day, my kids are older and they're on their own and they're independent. And you know what? The greatest gift that I could give them is allowing them to live their own experience, because at the end of the day, we're not responsible for anybody else's soul. It's their choosing, it's their path. And really, how dare we try to get in the middle of what their path is?
Well, how about a cool concept? And, what are we truly here to do? We're truly here to walk each other home. So we all have our own paths, and, to be present and mindful that our path may be different than someone else's path. And what can we do? What is the most powerful and loving thing that we can do when someone's on a different path than our own? We hold their hand. We hold their hand.
Let them be.
It's so cool. And that's like one of the things that we do with the Green Nurse. That's one of our big things is, we're here to relieve suffering, improve quality of life. We will hold your hand until you're ready to let go. This is not our journey. It's your journey. And so that's what we do as cannabis nurses is we look in a patient's eye and we say directly, what is important to you and how do you want to live your life? And let's go on that journey together without judgment.
There you go. So this talks to that statement that the NCSBN came out with in 2018, right? The thing that we talked about on Motivation Mondays.
Yep.
And that's and I think which one it's fifth or
It's the
sixth
sixth.
one.
It's the sixth one. I'll
Sixth
never
one, it
forget it.
says you shall meet the patient without judgment, right?
Yes,
Let them
yes,
walk their own path. So
yes.
we're educators, and then let them walk their path. No judgment,
No
whatever they
judgment.
choose. Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah.
With love and
So
compassion. So, what is
Ooh,
your word of the day?
my word of the day is going to be independent.
Mm, I like that.
Mhm, mhm.
I like that.
I'm gonna just let everybody be who they are.
Yes.
No
Go
judgment.
go be you, judgment free.
You be you, I'll be me, everything will
Yes.
be fine.
Well, here's a really cool concept too, Mark. When I can
Yeah,
love and accept who I am,
mhm.
it's easier for me to love and accept others. So it's
Oh,
oftentimes
yeah.
when I'm having issues, what's going on internally, that it's going to be reflected back to me and someone else. Right?
And you'll most likely be a little bit perturbed or bothered by their behavior until you realize
Right.
it's the behavior that you actually use from time to time that bothers you. So,
Yes.
yeah,
Yes. Yes.
here
Yes.
we are. All
Here
right,
we
so
are.
Wellness Wednesday, wise wisdom for wellness, and we're all about cardiac health and cannabis.
Yes, today. And why, well, we're bringing this up because, February is Black History Month. And so this week is actually African Heritage and Health Week. So this
Mm,
was created to help bring awareness to traditions and flavors of the African heritage. So African heritage foods include the yucca root, millet, peanut stews, and leafy greens. And so the importance of this African Heritage and Health Week is to
mhm,
bring attention to various food related illnesses that appear as the traditional cuisine of the African heritage have been left behind.
right.
So, when we take that just a step further, poor dietary choices have
Mhm,
contributed to the rise in obesity, diabetes, and heart disease in people of color.
right.
Fast
I
food,
would say
fried
that's
food,
true.
fake food,
Yeah,
lots
I'm sorry,
for
Sherry. I would
everyone.
say that's true for people of color and really everybody.
Yes,
So, you know what? We're marketed to 24/7,
yes.
24/7. And so what are the predominant ads that we see for food? For
Fast,
all of
fried,
those
and fake.
fast foods that are not nutritious. And so what are the choices that people have in their neighborhoods, right?
Mhm.
I long for a fast food restaurant where I can go in and get a salad and some good protein, fast food style, right? Because it's about convenience, but you don't see that. What you see are the traditional ones that are all this the things that you mentioned, the fast food, the fake food, the fatty food.
And here's the thing, if you think about it, people are, it's about the convenience. It's about what can I grab? It's about what
Right.
is predictable. It is about what is
Mhm.
the same. So you think about fast food, fried food, fake food, and they have it standardized, the standard American diet, which is
Right.
really unhealthy. People are
Supersized, baby.
used to it. People are used to it. And
Yeah.
so, being open. So just thinking about different choices, food choices that may just be a little bit healthier. So the reason why we're bringing this up is because the two leading causes of death in the Black community, according to the mortality data via the CDC in 2019, is
Mhm.
heart disease and cancer. So
Yeah.
today we're going to be talking about heart health and cannabis, because
Yeah.
what do we hear as nurses, Mark? We hear a lot of different questions, and the big one is this: is it okay to use cannabis if you have a cardiac condition or heart disease?
Right.
Right?
Right. And it's a tricky
It's a
question.
tricky thing.
It's a tricky answer
Hmm.
because
And so we're going to explain to you
it's a
why.
yes, it's a yes, maybe, and a no. It's
Exactly.
really it's dependent on a lot of different factors, as it usually is when it comes
Yeah.
to health in the human body.
Yes.
And
And we
so,
always look at
yeah,
risk benefit ratio.
right.
Huge.
Right. And so if you do a search, which I did earlier this morning, of relevant studies around cardiac and cannabis, you will see all negative studies. Like, because that's the focus that we're going for in the studies
Yeah.
when you design it, is let's see if this is a bad thing. So let's try to prove that it's a bad thing. So of course, and that is actually a good thing. We want to know if it's going to provide an adverse effect.
Right.
So most of the studies are talking about that. But I will say that almost all of the studies say at the end, further research is necessary.
Yeah, so I want to go into that just a little bit. So if you
Go
think
ahead.
about these studies, right?
Yep.
What makes them so challenging? Well, the
Mhm.
variability in cannabis type and use patterns of
Right.
people make it very challenging. And truly, too, most clinical studies look at the impact of cannabis on cardiovascular health only control for general use patterns. So, general use as opposed to the type of cannabis, the type of products, the different types of cannabinoids.
Right.
So, the studies don't control for THC consumption or the presence of other cannabinoids. So when someone says that cannabis use increases the risk for cardiovascular events, the next question really should be what type of cannabis and how often are they using, right?
Right. And yeah, and
Yeah.
until you know that, you really can't make an accurate assessment of the whether it does or it doesn't.
Yes. The other thing I really liked too was in 2013. This
Mhm.
is a really cool study. It contrasted 4,000 long term heart attack survivors who used cannabis with
Yep.
those that didn't use cannabis. And what they found was no significant statistical difference in the longevity. So, what
Right.
that means is this: cannabis was not a contributing factor to their lifespan if they had a heart attack.
Mhm.
Right. So, that's just really interesting.
And that
However,
and that's a pretty big cohort. I mean, 4,000 people that,
yeah,
when you're talking, that's like an epidemiological study, right? It's a
yeah.
study of the population to determine what's going on with this particular factor. But
Yep. So we're
again,
going to get into a little bit more. But
yeah,
so as we say here, risk benefit ratio. And
right.
while further research is required to definitively determine the impact of cannabis on cardiovascular disease, we feel as nurses it's reasonable to recommend against recreational cannabis use, especially in individuals with a history of coronary artery disorders. And we're
Yes,
going to get into what that is right now. Um,
right.
let's
So,
go back to the top of the page.
yeah, heart disease, cardiovascular diseases. What are we talking about when we're talking about these? We're talking about heart attack, stroke, high blood pressure, angina, chest pain, and rheumatic heart disease, damage from rheumatic fever.
Mhm.
And Sherry, you know, I know every one of those categories. I know people in my life that have had that adverse event. Like I know somebody who's had heart attacks, many people.
Me
I know
too.
many people have had strokes. I have high blood pressure. I know a ton of people do. I know people who have had angina. Like it's so common.
It's
Cardiac
really
cardiac
common.
disease is so common.
And the interesting thing too is when we look at cardiac risk factors,
Right.
they're generally factors or conditions or habits that make a person more likely to develop cardiac disease. So a lot of it has to do with lifestyle, right? You think
Mhm.
about the different lifestyle choices that we make. Okay, I always say this, and you guys hear me over and over. Everything that we're doing or not doing in our lives affects our endocannabinoid system. It's either making it work better, not making
Mhm.
it work so good. So,
Everything we do.
what are the risk factors, Mark? What are the risk factors for cardiac disease?
So, risk factors are conditions or habits that make a person more likely to develop cardiac disease, right? So, if you have high blood pressure, if you have hypertension or high blood cholesterol, you're going to be more likely to develop cardiac disease. So,
You
next
just
one,
froze. You're
do
frozen.
you look good.
Am I
Diabetes
frozen?
and
Who-
pre-diabetes.
Are you frozen or I'm frozen?
You're good. You're not frozen.
Okay, good. Okay, so where are we back?
Yeah,
High
no,
blood
that's on
pressure,
your
high.
end.
Oh, it was my end. Okay,
Yeah.
sorry, everyone. Okay, so we were on high blood pressure, high cholesterol.
Yeah. Diabetes and pre-diabetes. And what's the
Okay,
next
cool.
one?
Smoking,
Always smoking.
tobacco, smoking
Smoking
tobacco.
tobacco, being overweight or obese, which goes back to the fried fatty foods that we consume because we're marketed to, because we're programmed to do that.
Yep, absolutely. And then we have being physically inactive, right? Motion is the lotion. We talk about that all the time. Movement, move your body, right? We're going to stimulate the endocannabinoid system to produce that bliss like feeling that's going to
Right.
circulate in our body. and help us. So being physically inactive,
Right.
not good for the heart.
Inactivity is the second leading cause of preventable death behind tobacco use.
There you
So
go.
sitting on the couch is not good.
No.
Next.
All right. Having a family history of early heart disease. So if your family, like my dad and my grandfather, all have heart disease. So just have to be really, really careful and mindful of all the things that I'm doing and not doing. So family history.
Right. Having a history of preeclampsia during pregnancy. That's another risk factor.
Yeah. Yeah. And then also too, we already mentioned unhealthy diet and
Mhm.
age. So as we get older, specifically women who are 55 and older, but we're seeing more and more with poor lifestyle choices that people's, cardiovascular health is truly being compromised.
Right. Right.
All right. So what I like too, so basically what I really liked about current research is even though no clinical trials have been conducted on humans that offer practical guidance to patients, what they have done is preclinical studies show potential by which cannabinoids may modulate or improve cardiac function, which is really
Right.
cool.
Right. And it's primarily CBD, THC, and beta caryophyllene, which, beta caryophyllene is a terpene. And if you want to know about terpenes, stop by on a Tuesday. It's
Right.
Terpene Tuesday, but beta caryophyllene is really being considered another cannabinoid.
Yeah, it's
Like
great.
it's in between a terpene and a cannabinoid. And so when you look at those three, they may be cardioprotective, therapeutic with contributing factors such as chronic stress, obesity, and inflammation.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. And so cardioprotective too. So what does that mean? So cardioprotective, if you think about neuroprotective, you protect brain cells. Cardioprotective, these CBD, THC, and beta caryophyllene may be cardioprotective with these specific cardiac events, such as hypoxia, which is low oxygen, poor tissue perfusion. You're not getting oxygen to your different tissues.
And the cells die, cardiac cells die.
Exactly. Arrhythmias, which are irregular heartbeats, right?
And that's the
And
one. I'm sorry, Sherry, and that's
no,
the
it's
one.
okay.
Arrhythmias is that's the one that you see prevalently in the studies. Like there's a lot of concern around cannabis causing arrhythmias, differences in the heartbeat, which is not a good thing to be experiencing.
Right.
Sorry.
And we'll, yeah, it's okay. No, that's good. And the reason why too, if we think about it, too, we're going to talk about the THC impact
Mhm.
on our heart, and we'll talk about that in a minute. So CBD, THC, beta caryophyllene may be cardioprotective with hypoxia, arrhythmias, angina, which is also known as chest pain. All right.
Mhm.
So chest pain is different than having a heart attack, right? So myocardial infarction or a heart attack is when we have a lack of oxygen, we have a blockage that
Mhm.
prevents that cardiac muscle, our heart is a muscle, from getting oxygen rich blood. And then that part of the heart dies, right?
Right.
All
Right.
right. So
All
why,
right.
why, 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 why are we really need to be careful about THC use with cardiac patients? Well,
Mm,
here's the reason why. THC does increase heart rate.
it
Why does
does.
it increase the heart rate? Why does it do that? Because cannabis is a
Vasodilate.
vasodilator,
Right.
right? So when things vasodilate, so just imagine a really, really, really tight hose. You have a constricted tight hose, and then all of a sudden it opens up.
Yep.
More of that water, more of that fluid is going to go through, and so what happens is your blood pressure is going to go
Yep.
down because it's
Yep.
opened. And
Yep.
it's a compensatory mechanism, right? So the vasodilation increases the
Mhm.
diameter of the blood vessel, which
Right.
forces the heart to work a little bit harder to pump
Right.
out blood.
I love that hose analogy. It's like I think about it like when I was a kid, you'd hold your thumb over the end of the hose and make it squirt really hard and fast.
Yeah.
You're increasing the pressure in the hose, and then you let go, and it just kinda just flows out, right?
Yes.
That's like the
Right.
vasodilation. You're right, the heart has to work a lot harder because there's more space, and that same amount of blood fluid is in those arteries and veins, and it has to push all that through.
Right. So this is interesting too. So some of the reports suggest that the heart must work 30% harder in the presence of high levels of
Mhm.
THC. So that's important. So why are we mentioning this? We're mentioning this because low THC is better for patients that have cardiovascular disease And it's really important to think about dosing. So patients that are
Micro
using,
dosing.
yes, micro
Woo!
dosing for the win, for the
Yes.
win. So here's
Huge
the,
fan.
yeah. So here's a really cool thing too, which I really like.
Mhm.
And they've shown this. Cannabis effects on arteries. So a lot of people are like, "Oh, what's an artery?" So you've got veins and arteries carry oxygen-rich blood away from the heart to the other organ systems to
Mhm.
provide that oxygen, to perfuse those tissues to keep them healthy and alive.
Right.
So high doses of THC are not good for arteries,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
And why is that?
It's just not good because it
It's not,
increases plaque buildup in the arteries, and it can
yeah,
lead to heart attack and stroke over
right.
time.
So over time, so
And that's
low
high
doses. So this is
THC.
high THC. So when
Mhm.
we are pro cannabis, y'all know that. We are happy to educate on it, but we always like to look at the risk benefit ratio and the
Oh,
studies and how is it best used. So high doses of THC are not good for the arteries. Low doses of THC, which I like, have been shown to reduce plaque buildup. So
right.
that's really cool. Low THC for the win.
Absolutely, it's the biphasic nature of cannabinoids, right? They do one thing at a very high dose and another thing at a very low dose.
Right. So our favorite cannabinoid is
Mhm.
CBD, full spectrum with the trace amounts of THC.
Yes.
And so what does CBD do in our heart, in our bodies, Mark, when we're
Yeah,
talking
listen,
about
we know very well that it reduces inflammation and oxidative stress, and it's without the risk of THC-induced tachycardia, the increase in the heart rate, or anxiety, because high amounts of THC absolutely cause anxiety. Again,
Yep,
because it's biphasic. One does one thing at a high dose, another thing at a low.
yes,
Microdose for the win.
absolutely. The other thing that we like about CBD is CBD does not produce radical changes in hemodynamics, blood pressure, and heart rate, but presents with a number of supportive mechanisms, which I really love. So that cardioprotective effect, stress reduction
Mhm.
with modulation of serotonin receptors in our brain, and then
Yep.
the antioxidant effect on cells, which protects the cells.
Hey, listen, it's Wednesday. It's the long week, Sherry. We can go through these and
Yeah. So let's do a summary. Let's do in summary.
yeah.
In summary, so here we go. Just to review everything in summary, low doses of THC
Mhm.
appear to be most strongly impacting for pro cardiovascular health effects, meaning that low doses of THC are better for the heart.
Right. And they've been shown to reduce plaque buildup and risk for atherosclerosis. Again, low doses of THC are patient specific. So you can't give a milligram or a number or a dose because
No,
it's different for every person and it changes for people over time. So
no. And
this
so
is
our
this is a really cool medicine.
cool medicine and everything that we do or don't do affects our body. And so we really need to be cognizant of every single thing that we're doing
Right.
and to pay attention if we do have, cardiac disease as to how we consume cannabis. And that's why we are here for you. We're here to
Right.
educate you and empower you on the
Yes.
benefits of cannabis with whatever condition that you may have.
Mhm. Mhm. Microdose for the win. I can't say
Microdose.
that enough.
Exactly. So if you or someone you love is suffering from chronic illness, chronic disease, if you have cardiac disease, and you're interested in learning how to make cannabis work for you, or you're interested in learning how to incorporate it into your life as a health and wellness regimen. And there's also a lot of cannabis curious people out there that want to learn how to have a safe adult use experience. We are here for you. Come see us at the Green Nurse.
Absolutely. And if you're in the healthcare space anywhere along that spectrum, helping people to be healthy, join us at the Green Nurse community and learn more about how you can add cannabis coaching to your practice, to what you're doing to help people live a more healthy life.
Yes. And before we sign off, let's say hello to some of the people that are here watching. So Denise, Carrie Lee, thank you for joining us. Colleen, Laura, and Maria wrote, I actually woke up this morning thinking about cardiac disease and cannabis, and I turned on here, and that's what the subject is. Great. Isn't that awesome? Yes.
I love that. I
Me
love that.
too.
Thanks for stopping by, everybody. It really is so good to see you. And from yesterday's daily love being present again, we don't get this day back again.
No,
So
we don't.
so be intentional with your day today. Make it the best day ever for sure, because it's
For
the
sure.
only Wednesday, February 3rd, 2021 you're ever going to get.
Oh, and Mark, we
Yeah.
have two more radio shows going on today. So in the
Oh,
weeds,
Wednesdays are a wild day for media, Sherry.
Wild Wednesday. So in the weeds, Prohibition Talk Radio. Mark and
Yeah.
I are so honored to have a segment called Canna Talk.
Oh,
And yep. And so today, we're gonna having a great segment on Wellness Wednesday, which will be going over cardiac disease again and THC and cardiac use. The
mhm.
other thing that's really cool about the show today is one of our previous guests that came on our show is coming on in the Weeds Prohibition Talk Radio, and her name is Sister Suzanne. She is a nun that has gotten off of fentanyl using cannabis. So she's going to come on and share her story. She'll be
She's
really
so much
powerful.
fun. Such a joy. And
And then
then
tonight, who do
tonight,
we have tonight? Who do we have tonight?
so we have the Kushners. We are on at 8 o'clock, streaming live, Facebook and YouTube. And Sherry, talk about our guest.
Oh goodness. So tonight's guest is the Kushner. She's an amazing, amazing woman. She has been in the cannabis space for a while. She has a compelling story about how cannabis has helped her live her best life. And also too how she's now doing cannabis consulting. She has her own podcast. She has a great following. And so we're going to talk to the Kush nurse tonight. Her
Yeah,
name
join
is
us.
Sandra
Join us tonight.
Gwines. Sandra
Yeah.
Gwines, cannabis nurse Sandra.
Woohoo. And
All right.
you
So
know
this
what?
has been
I'm
a
going to have an AFA day today.
I am too. This has been a long edition of Wellness Wednesday, so thank you for sticking with us. I'm going to have an AFA day. And Mark, what's it all about?
You know what it's all about, Sherry. It's living your best life. All right, folks. We'll see you tonight and again tomorrow morning.